Oh wait, that gets added to your hand, by the way.
It does? Okay, cool.
Hey everyone, this is Curb, and I bring you another standard match. Today we have, at long last, Flagburg on the left, being piloted not by myself, because I do not want to torment myself by playing Flagburg once again. I have not touched the deck really since set 6 or 7, I think, and instead I have a sacrificial lamb here. The young Ryan is going to be piloting my deck for me, and we'll see how it does, although it is actually performing a lot better than I would have expected. Considering that actually this is from a locals, this isn't part of the tournament, but during the locals, Flagburg actually managed to get 4th place and go X1 for, was it 5 rounds? It was like 4 or 5 rounds. But anyways, the reason I had to build Flagburg is because of all of you. In case you forgot, I put a little poll after the Vanguard week, which is over at this point. But everyone kept voting for Flagburg, and it became this really huge competition between Flagburg and Claudine. And when I decided to finally call it, it was a super narrow margin. It was like 30% for Flagburg and 29% for Claudine, which means that I did have to build Flagburg. I was definitely struggling with it, but my teammate helped me out with the build, and it's looking like it is fairly competent, and I think as good as Flagburg is going to get for the time being. That being said, Flagburg is still not very good, but you know, with the right player piloting it and you know the right amount of luck, we'll see how far it can go. So I guess we can actually get into the ride line, the game itself. Speaking of the ride line, I am actually playing the Zorya ride line because it's just the best ride line that Soikea really has. I did actually get a little bit of a few ideas about how to build this deck from, once again, Team VCS Empire, I think. I really like their deck profile, but of course I made a couple of my own personal tweaks. Some things that I kind of figured were that I had different opinions about. One of the things that I do really like for this deck is Habitat. If Flagburg had Habitat like in set 4, it would have been just like an insane deck at that point, but of course it doesn't. Or it didn't, and now it does, so we'll see how it does there. So unfortunately, having to Habitat for Habitat probably didn't get anything really that good. I will say one of the big issues with Flagburg is that when it goes first, it kind of can't really do anything because the deck is so reliant on Inlet Pulse, and Inlet Pulse does not work if you go first. So we'll see how that ends up turning out. But thankfully, Flagburg is actually going second here, which is kind of beneficial because that means your opponent's going to be on grade 3 by the time you get to your grade 3. Oh, by the way, he's going up against Shojodoji. I'm going to assume that you are all of average intelligence and you're capable of, you know, figuring that much out. So we're going to see Shojodoji. Unfortunately, I had to actually read all these cards, which is very annoying. As we do use the Shojodoji skill there. I think we bound 2 cards from Sol and Orta. We're supposed to bind that grade 1 in the back row, and then we use a skill of the grade 2 Shojodoji to Soul Blast 1 and then just call itself out. Going to be swinging with the, is it a Madoka or whatever, swinging at the Vanguard, hitting into a defensive trigger, meaning the other attack is not going to hit. The Shojodoji itself is going to be swinging at the Vanguard using its skill to, I don't know what we're doing here. Soul Blast, I have no idea what just happened, but we put 2 Rears in Soul, call something from Bind Zone. It's going to be that grade 3, the really good one that when it's placed, you could Soul Blast 1 and draw a card. And then if your opponent's Vanguard is grade 3 or greater, which at this point it's not, it's going to get like, wait, no, I think it's plus 10k regardless. And then Shojodoji just doesn't give an extra 10k since the opponent's not on grade 3. So we're going to be guarding for 30 against this 13, so it's going to be a 2 to pass. So we're not going to be hitting it, just getting a heal trigger, swinging at the Vanguard for a 33. We're at 20. That's technically a 15k guard, but looks like we're not going to go for it. And instead hitting into a defensive OT there. Gotta remember something very important. Notice what Ryan just did there. He stood his damage zone. That's very important. If you forget to stand your damage zone at the start of your turn, you actually instantly lose. I don't know what to tell you. Everyone's been doing it wrong this whole time. There we go. We just attacked with the damage zone. Anyways, getting into the match, we did remember to bind the grade 1, although it doesn't really matter just adding it to the hand. It does technically matter, I guess, a little bit, because that means we can just call it down again and use our Persona Ride Searcher yet again. But looks like we're going to be starting off with a Habitat, the one that we got last turn. Checking that top 7. Kind of another good thing about Habitat is kind of just gives you like an extra hand. It lets you get to extra copies of your units. You can basically call out whatever you don't have in hand, or if you have a copy of it in hand, just commit it from the deck. So you're deck thinning and you're not having to commit cards from hand, which is very beneficial. Although Flagburg has a lot of cards in hand, I think thanks to I think we hit a draw trigger, so that's probably beneficial. And also that OT definitely helps. Calling out that grade 1 from set 12, I believe it is. The whole reason I had to build Flagburg, because it actually got support, although I don't really think it's good enough. Actually hitting off of the grade 1 skill this time, going to be adding a copy of Persona Ride. So assuming we can live to next turn, which we're going up against Shojodoji, so that's pretty possible, we will have a pretty strong turn going into that turn 4. So we do have at least, what is that, 1, 2, 3, 4 attacks right now. We do need another multi-attacker in order to actually get to the 5 attacks. Thankfully, Inlet Pulse will be online, but unfortunately, we do kind of just lose to a single defensive at this point. So there's the Inlet Pulse swinging, actually using the Inlet Pulse Dragon skill. Thankfully, not hitting to a defensive. Who knew Inlet Pulse Dragon has a skill? I've always just been using it as a Solon +1 draw, I guess. Unfortunately, that second attack is going to be hitting into a defensive, and unfortunately a front trigger, meaning that that rear guard is going to be too strong to attack into, but it's not really going to matter because, Flagburg retired anyway. That's kind of what we were just thinking, like, oh, it's not strong enough to kill it, but Flagburg is going to kill it with its own skill. Drawing the card, retiring 2 of the opponent's rear guards, and then getting an extra 10,000 and the guard restrict. So technically this is a double credit to win it, but we're not going to be seeing it there. Hitting into a draw trigger instead. Kind of unfortunate. I think we do play 4 draws in the deck currently, and part of me wonders if that had been a crit would have made a difference. Not really, honestly. 4 and 5 is not too different. It does mean that next turn Flagburg, if we get to the 5 attacks, we are going to have to risk the crit. But we do see a new card for Shojodoji. Shojodoji's actually been getting a lot of random support, and all of it kind of looks insane. Like, we see this grade 2 here. You counterblast 1, check top 5, and then add any stealth from among them to your hand, which is just kind of insane. I guess it's kind of tempered by the fact that there aren't a lot of great stealth cards. There are quite a few that are like decent, but they're all kind of locked to Shojodoji and other. I don't even know what we're saying. But we are using the grade 1. The skill is actually to, on place, you choose a card from your bind zone. You can actually put it into the soul. We're gonna see double copies of the grade 3 placed into the soul there. Did we ever use Shojodoji's skill? I don't remember. Oh yeah, we definitely did, because we bound those other 2 rear guards. So obviously, if we had Persona Ride, this would be a little bit scary, but currently, as we're looking at it, these are 18k swings. These both get shut down by a single defensive, and that's not going to be at all difficult to guard. Guarding with that draw trigger, they're very easy card to guard, or attack to guard, and then just guarding the second swing of the 18, and then using the Shojodoji skill to put to both of the rear guards. The grade 2's other skill is that when it is put into the soul by your Vanguard's skill, you can actually give your Vanguard an extra 5k, and then you choose one of your opponent's bound cards and you put it on the bottom of the deck, which we're going to forget about for right now, but it's going to happen eventually. And then the other skill of those grade 1s is that when something is placed from bind zone on your rear, you can actually shove them into the soul and draw a card. So with 2 copies of them, they're going to go into the soul, and we're going to draw 2 more cards. Calling out that new grade 3, which is I already forgot what it does. It's kind of just like a worse version of the other one. It's like Counterblast 1 to get like 5k, and it does something else, but I don't know, I think it's like draw a card or whatever. But you probably saw if it popped up on screen. Hitting into a critical trigger there, so pushing Flagburg to 5. Unfortunately, hitting to a heal trigger, that's not going to be able to proc, and then swinging this last grade 3. It did get 10k since Flagburg is now on grade 3, so just going to be blocking that with a 15 thanks to that defensive trigger. So I'm going to be Persona Riding, the one we nicely searched out, and it looks like we have another copy of Persona Ride. So assuming we can't finish things off this turn, we are going to have a decent next turn. But you know, the Shojodoji is at 4 at this moment, but at the same time, look at those cards in hand. Those grade 1s just like replenishing your hand is actually pretty good. Just like any card that replaces itself is just very good in standard. We do see, I play one copy of this grade 1 from set like 7 or whatever. You counterblast 1, discard a card, call something from drop, and gets an extra 5k. Kind of deciding what we want to do. Unfortunately, you are seeing one of the big problems with Flagburg. There is not really any good counter charge in Stoicheia. Like, sure, we have Prize Trident, but honestly, even when I played Flagburg in its prime, I never really liked to Prize Trident too much, just because it's so hard to proc. In order to actually get there, at least back in the day, you would have had to commit at least, what is that, 2 CB, because you need one for Ascendant Assault, and you would need one for Flagburg. So even just the fact that you have to commit so many resources to a Prize Trident, that makes me kind of not like it, because you're not getting any counter charge back. You're kind of just I don't know, stemming the bleeding of the counterblast. So this build is opting to not play it, just because, I don't know, Flagburg is a deck that you kind of win or lose on turn 4, so it doesn't really matter how much, like, you don't really want to be conserving resources. You're just a high aggressive deck, and if you can't kill within those first 4 turns, or those first or second grade 3 turns, then you're probably not going to be winning anyway. But anyways, we see the, whatever that calls, Vanguard chain being called out, then just attacking. Thankfully we're under Persona Ride, so all these things are pretty much hitting over defensive. The Inlet Pulse is going to be swinging, and then the second attack being a 33, so very threatening attacks here. I believe that was a proxy where proxying the effect front, but you know, just who cares? It's just a small thing. Funny thing about that Vanguard chain is it's actually a 10k booster, because we did actually use the Forbid All, and we called out the Inlet Pulse. Oh, another thing that I'm not playing in my Flagburg list is a copy of Shelling Dragon. Those eagle-eyed viewers of you may have seen that we used a Forbid All for just one Flagburg. And we didn't call a Shelling Dragon, even though we had a perfect slot there. The reason we didn't call the Shelling is because I do not play it. We saw the card that I'm playing instead of it, which is the Florence. I just think Florence is just a much better card than Shelling Dragon, because Shelling Dragon is another card that needs another counterblast, especially since right now I'm not playing any CC, no counter charge. It's just such a not good card. Like, yes, it is a card that helps you reach those 5 attacks, but I don't know, it's not live when you're going first, and it's just sits there, and it's a dead card and it has no shield. I just really don't like it, and I think Florence is just a much better card in general. It at least hits over defensives. I am playing another card that helps facilitate it, which is the grade 1 dragon little dude, like Hydro Burst Dragon or something, which kind of only comes up if you're going first, and in most cases you don't need it after that. But oh yeah, look, there's a Vanguard match happening right in front of me as I'm talking about things that'll probably be discussed in the deck profile, which I will be doing. Hopefully you listened this far before going down to the comments and asking for Flagburg deck profile when, please. But I will be doing it. Right now I'm lending the deck to Ryan. He's going to be playing it for, I don't know, like, well, I might pick it up this weekend, but I will do that deck profile eventually. Just if you ask for it, I will be upset and disappointed in you, although it isn't at the beginning of the video, but whatever. You know how I said there's a Vanguard match happening? Yeah, let's get back into that. Anyways, Shojodoji kind of just building a board. We do see another copy of the grade 1, a Forktail coming down. This grade 2 swinging for only 18. Kind of a dicey situation. We do have to probably take at least one of these attacks, just because, you know, we need that 1 CB for Flagburg skill. Thankfully, we're not playing things like Ascendance Assault. All of our multi-attack comes from the soul, and then that's why we have so many cards that help facilitate gaining soul, including that grade 1, which I kind of missed. It went into the soul during the opponent's turn, just because we kind of forgot to use a skill. So we definitely have more than enough soul to do our plays next turn. Shojodoji doing its thing, putting the entire other column into the soul in order to call out the grade 3 from the bind zone. The grade 2 going into the soul is going to bot deck the grade 2, and then the other card is going to Soul Blast, draw a card, get an extra 10k. That with an extra 10k from Shojodoji skill is going to be a total of 43. So even though this is a 1 to pass, we're going to be PGing that because it is kind of risky. If you were going to hard guard that, you probably just want to go for a 2 to pass, but you know, depending on what you have in hand, that's also a little risky. And OT is still not showing, so that's also another consideration. We see the cat coming on down here, using its skill to put the 2 from the drop zone just to be a 20k shield. Honestly, my Joshua really like sold me on these cards. Like I was like, okay, whatever, like especially Stoichia is terrible. It's kind of good in this deck because you do have a little bit of soul issues. Its other skills to soul charge too, but honestly just having a 20k shield is just insane sometimes. I really love cats. They're great. Anyways, we see for the other the additional 5k just calling down the Florence because we did actually hit a trigger, so it does get an extra 10k shield. Another reason why I like Florence over Shelling Dragon. You couldn't do that with Shelling Dragon. That would be terrible. You could, but it wouldn't do anything. But looks like we do actually have enough units to facilitate our multi-attack. We've got 4 attacks here with that grade 2. Hopefully we can get an inlet pulse down so that we can do our optimal turn. But you know, we gotta kind of decide what we're doing. We only have the 1 CB, meaning we can't reborn anything. We didn't use the skill, the Persona Ride Searcher. I mean, we have another one in hand, I think. But instead, we're going to be activating the Habitat, which hopefully can get us to that Inlet Pulse. And look, there he is. Actually, that deck is looking very, very thin. So I hope we calculated how many Inlet Pulses we had left in deck before we did that. And, you know, decide whether it was viable or not. Yeah. I think Shojodoji is at 4, so you know, things might be a little bit dicey here. Shojodoji still has a lot of cards in hand. I have not just been paying attention to how much advantage Shojodoji has been making. Just that grade 3 kind of giving you a draw every single turn is kind of allowing him to get a lot of free advantage, and the fact that you do also sometimes get free rear guards in the form of the Shojodoji ride line, just to, because you do need cards to like pay the cost or whatever. But we're going multi-attack 23, 33, or 20, 33. We can only take 1 more damage before we have to block everything, and in this situation it's kind of a do or die. I don't really know what the best option is in this situation, but it looks like we're going to be opting to take the Flagburg, which does make sense. It's easier to guard the other attacks and just like tank the Flagburg and hope they don't get a crit. Thankfully for Alexis over there playing Shojodoji, we don't see a crit, but instead a heal, which is, you know, sometimes just as painful because they are at the same damage. So, or actually Flagburg was at 5, so Flagburg going to be healing down to 4. So making it that much more difficult to close things out here. But Flagburg still has a massive hand, even though we opted to not use the Inlet Pulse skill because we are kind of running low on deck there. So we'll have to see. And I think we were supposed to counterblast the 1 extra 1 there. We're supposed to have 0 CB, but as you're going to see, it's not really going to matter. So don't worry about it at all. But Shojodoji coming into this, I don't think we have Persona Ride. So things might be a little bit dicey. Oh, we did Persona Ride, never mind. Swinging the 20k at the Vanguard, binding the front row, which is definitely the correct play. Inlet Pulse is whatever, but you do want to get rid of that shield value, the extra 5k. You have to kill this turn, and if you don't, you kind of just lose. But we do have Shojodoji using the skill there, calling out the grade 4. Looks like we still have another PG for the Shojodoji, just in case. Going to be swinging, I believe it's just 23. Just PGing it, drive checking into double Fork Tails. Not going to be enough as we commit these Elementaria to just block this final attack. But it's really looking like this is going to be the last turn. As Flagburg goes for its, what is that, the 3rd Persona Ride. Finally getting all of them. Only 4 cards left in deck, so things are a little bit risky. We can still use Flagburg as long as there's not a draw trigger in the drive checks, because Flagburg does allow you to get that draw, and then you drive check 2. Hopefully you don't hit into a drive draw trigger, but at this point it's not really going to matter. The Inlet Pulse is swinging for 23. We got 4 more attacks after that, so we're just going to take it because we just don't have enough shield in hand. Anyways, that's going to do it for the match. I hope you guys enjoyed. Don't forget to do all these 2 things: like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one.